Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AI and ChatGPT 101. My name is Lauren Hippolyte, and I'm the Managing Director of the Wharton AI and Analytics Initiative. Thank you for joining us today. It's great to see so many Wharton alumni here, and I'd also like to extend a welcome to our members whose engagement makes it possible for us to offer these exclusive opportunities. For those of you who may be newer to WAIAI, our work is grounded in democratizing faculty research and equipping industry professionals with the AI and analytics knowledge they need to lead in this rapidly evolving landscape. We focus on bridging rigorous academic insight with practical application so alumni and industry professionals alike can engage with AI confidently and responsibly. One way we do that is through our Professional Learning Hub, which brings these ideas to life in formats designed for busy professionals. Inside, you'll find industry reports, nano tools for leaders, expert-led podcasts, and additional resources that support your continued growth and fluency in AI. Today's session is another great example of this approach. We're starting with the fundamentals because we believe everyone, regardless of technical background, deserves a clear and approachable entry point into AI. There's no better person to guide us through that journey than Jaden Dicopoulos, our Associate Director of AI and Education. Jaden plays a key role in shaping how we teach and translate AI concepts for business leaders, and I'm thrilled for you to learn from him today. Please join me in welcoming Jaden.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction, Lauren, and welcome to this information session on AI and ChatGPT. So I'm going to start things off. I'm going to go over the agenda. So a little introduction about myself, some brief AI basics, when ChatGPT or AI goes awry, when all those wonderful things happen and all of a sudden it doesn't answer our messages properly, AI at work, so how you can actually leverage AI properly at work, and then a wrap up and Q&A. I also want to add that at the end of each of these sections, I'll be stopping for questions from the chat. We'll try and get to as many as we possibly can, but we definitely have a lot of information to cover in a very short amount of time. So let's begin. So a little bit about myself. I started my professional career 10 years ago. I was a data scientist at the Department of Marine and Coastal Sciences. This is where I got to work on various edge technologies, things like underwater robots, satellites, and being able to take that data, put it through an automated pipeline, and then get it to researchers and analysts to understand many things like weather, things like that, our oceans. And then now for the last 3 years, have been working at the Wharton AI and Analytics Initiative, helping with our many student experiential learning programs, our flagship program, our accelerator program, our hackathon, and then many different ad hoc workshops like this one, just kind of talking to staff, faculty, and students about the ever-evolving world of AI. So some insights from the survey results. So we actually sent out a couple questions before people were going to join. And the first one was about how confident everyone was with basic AI concepts and terms, things like that. And the average answer was not confident, which is great, And also the same thing with how comfortable you are with AI tools and writing prompts. The average answer was not comfortable. So you are in a great spot. We are, this is the ground floor. We're going to go from how the technology works all the way up to, getting you prompting and then maybe even creating some AI tools on your own. So this first part, this is something that you might, AI has been so crazy and it's just been so pushed on all of us. I feel like it's getting, integrated into every part of our lives. And this is a statement that I kind of like to put out there, just kind of like my own personal ethos that, AI should not be mandatory. Its value lies in efficiency. It's an efficiency tool. If it's not, if it still takes you an hour to write this email and an hour to write an email and then an hour for you to workshop it with, ChatGPT in some way, there's no real value add. If it's not helping you be more efficient, more correct, or anything like that, then, why are we stressing so much to put it into our lives so much? But, a lot of this comes with giving it your best shot. It's very easy to just, try it a couple times, then not really, understand it or, get a couple wrong answers and be like, oh, it's terrible. Hopefully after this session, we're going to be able to get a much better understanding of how to make it work for you, so you can actually get this efficiency gain. But don't feel too bad about, it not helping so much at all. Okay. So brief AI basics. So, how does AI work and how does it understand words and context? And this is through tokens. So, tokens, large language models interpret textual data as tokens, and tokens are just words or chunks of characters. And this is what that looks like. So, the apple, like these individual colors are one token. And these tokens help capture semantic information and linguistic context. What this means is it knows the difference between an apple, like an apple like a fruit, and then an apple like the Apple computer. So, how does that work with understanding what comes next? How does, the whole system work in general? And let's just say we wanted AI to help us complete this sentence. So we have the sky is, and then we put it into our large language model. And what it does is in the back end it creates it's stochastic, it's probabilistic. It creates different outcomes based on the previous context. So for this one, the sky is blue. It would be the most likely, right? And then what it does is it takes that most likely answer, or usually it takes the most likely answer, and then it puts that into the next prompt. Essentially, AI is just a glorified autocomplete or auto correct. So that's how the system works. And the model just, selects the most likely word and adds it to the prompt sequence. So knowing this, how can we change that outcome based on, some of maybe the context we're giving it? So a generic statement of the sky is blue, that's just what it is. But then maybe we are talking about, hey, complete this sentence, but in the form of a motivational speech. And then that would maybe go, the sky is the limit because we've changed the context. Those tokens have different meanings. Those words have different meanings now that based on, the context that it was given. So prompts in the pre-prompt. So when interface with any of these AI models, it's really interesting. It's not like a lot of the things we interact with on a day-to-day basis. You can press a button. You're actually given a chat window. You have to just, you're looking into this thing and you have to be like, okay, what do I ask it? How do I even begin with this? So that's the prompt. And then you also have what's called the pre-prompt. So before you even have a conversation with ChatGPT, there's something that actually goes before it. So we have our prompt, right? I need a ChatGPT help me make a lemon poppy seed muffin recipe, but I can't use lemons or poppy seeds, Just, one of your normal prompts, or help me write this email. We put in our large language model, and then we get a response. But before this even happens, and this is really good to know, is that there's something called the pre-prompt. And this is a conversation that, OpenAI has one before it talks to ChatGPT. You might even have one through custom instructions or how you've actually built your bot. A lot of these things are hidden behind some settings of like, please stop using the M dash. Everyone's going to know I'm using ChatGPT because there's an M dash in there, things like that. Or like I'd like a more concise or serious tone. That pre-prompt is just really important. And why it matters so much is because it helps establish the AI's behavior. OpenAI's like how it's talking, it wants it to be helpful. It also prevents harmful or biased responses. And also, most importantly, it's consistent interaction experience. You want every time it's going to respond, you want it to be concise, or you want it to have like, be very verbose, all these different things. But it's just mostly to serve or create these guide rails or guardrails before any kind of user interaction begins. So another one that's it's funny. This is a slide I usually sometimes I leave out, but it's coming up more often with what does training or fine tuning a model mean? So a lot of the times you'll hear companies or you'll hear providers say like, well, our model is fine tuned, so it has less hallucinations or it's more accurate. So what this actually means is let's think about we're going to train a large language model for an apple farmer, going back to our apple example. So we want the model to maybe learn or actually understand a little bit more about the fruit, the apple, the fruit, and less about Apple, the computer, because it's going to come up more often. There's, not very often it's going to know about, Apple computers or that's going to be brought up in conversation, but it should know more about the fruit or have that be a little bit more powerful in the context. So fine tuning is just a targeted retraining or of the pre-trained model on a specific data set to improve performance on specialized tasks. And this can involve adjusting the model's parameters using additional labeled or curated data. So like we said, the data that's actually going to be put into there, it's going to be more focused on the apple fruit. And just a very important reminder for this is that while the model becomes smarter, it still doesn't necessarily understand the actual situation. Like it doesn't have that, it's still this autocomplete. It doesn't necessarily know or fully understand the situation, but it has much better context. So, what is prompt engineering? This is one that comes up very often and how to do it effectively. This is also a course I've given in the past that has taken an entire hour. So, to kind of put it onto one or two slides was pretty difficult, but a lot has changed also since then. And prompt engineering refers to the strategy and technique used to properly communicate context to a large language model on how you want it to generate content. So effective prompting means providing an optimal amount of context. I've said this context word a ton. We'll also get into that, but amount of context and instructions for how the large language is going to complete that given task. And so if you actually really want to have like a sit down experience with, there's a web like on OpenAI actually provides a more guided like, hey, this is how you should reword this prompt. That you can go to this website. It's excellent. Also, I wanted to mention that everyone will be getting a PDF of these slides. So don't, go ahead, screenshot or, you'll definitely be getting this at the end as well. So don't worry about writing down that long link. But yeah, so you can have a sit down conversation and figure out how to properly write your prompts through OpenAI's service that they provide on that website. And effective prompting just means that you need to be a very good question asker and providing ample context. And it also relies on detailed and very direct instructions. And something that's come up, and this is something that's very new, but a lot of these large language models, you'll see them do this thinking thing. They're able to take your give me like a recipe for poppy seeds, or poppy seed muffins, and then better construct that. So before it even gets past a large language model, it's doing some of the prompt engineering for you so you get a better answer. And while it will help with that prompt engineering part, it will still attempt to find the context. So you really want to be able to give more background, the words and like how like the verbiage of how you go about the instructions. It helps with a little bit, but what kind of lemon poppy seed muffins, like like are they vegan, things like that. That context is still you don't want it necessarily trying to go and find that. All right, so finally getting to the word that I've been saying so much, context, and what does AI know? And context is critical because a large language model does not understand the world directly. It predicts the next piece of text based entirely on the text it's already been given. And if important information is missing, ambiguous, or poorly structured, the model has no reliable way to infer it. So a lot of the context is just, the supporting material in text that the model can use or to, infer later decisions. And, the way that this is, given, can be given in like the actual prompt itself, like when you go to type into the text chat, but also when you add like a document or a PowerPoint, it takes that information and it cleans out all that text. So it gets just the plain text from like, all these documents, PowerPoints. For images, it gets textual descriptions of those images. So it's not necessarily seeing the image, but what it's doing is it's figuring out how to put that image into words to provide context. And almost the same kind of goes for spreadsheets and data. It creates it and just puts it into a very structured way. So it reads it pretty much just as text. All right. So this is a little prompting checklist. This is something that like I would sit down before I'm about to make a prompt. I would like how I think about how I'm going to go about this. So first, we're just going to start with like the overall instructions. So that includes writing very clear directions. So write an email. Who is this for? The defined business output or the defined output. So for this, I want it to be a business email and my boss is going to be reading it. The context and how I'm going to go about it. So making sure that's relevant to the topic. We're not trying to have anything that's irrelevant because if we put in something that is maybe not something that's supposed to be supported, it'll still kind of come out in our prompts or in our responses. And then have it be readable by the AI. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit about what that means, but having it just in as plain text as possible, and then providing examples. So what this prompt would actually look like is, hey, ChatGPT, I would like you to write me an email that will be read by my boss. I would like it's a business email, and I would like it in a serious tone. And here are the latest meeting notes to include on that. And those meeting notes are in plain text. And here is a previous email that I wrote, or for a previous email that I have that will provide context and also the style that I want you to write the email in. That would be a more complete prompt. A lot of the times it comes down to, just including more, just providing, better instructions and providing more context. And then everyone loves these. These are some tips and tricks just to make sure, just to add in a little spice to these prompts, the extra things that you can include. Sometimes these things change. They have varying degrees of like importance or of relativity into like the prompts. But number one would be assigning the AI a role. So you're a CFO, you're a subject matter expert on this thing that I would like you to respond on. And the why this works is because when the AI model goes into its training, it will source better information, or it will source information that actually comes from that field of study. And the same thing works with disclosing some stakes. So saying, hey, this is paid work. Like ChatGPT, I will tip you $200 for this. That actually works quite well because it will be going to, oh, I'm being paid. I should be sourcing paid work. And that obviously is of higher quality than something that might be, its training might be off of like a Reddit comment or something. So disclosing some stakes helps a lot. And then another thing that is very helpful, we're kind of already talking about this, and we'll get into why this is so important a little bit later. But do this conversion for ChatGPT, this plain text conversion. Don't chance it with, trying to figure out, hey, is it able to read this properly, or is this PDF? Is it seeing all the text? Doing that, making sure that it's in this plain text form, like a document, Times New Roman 12, no fancy font. Being able to have it in that format is really, really key. And then the last one is, and this is also very, very helpful if you're still trying to like learn exactly what the AI needs. You can actually request and talk to, have it talk back to you and say, hey, maybe include this, or I need to know a little bit more about this. So just have it say, like at the end of like, hey, help me write this email. And if there's anything I'm missing, please let me know. Or if there's anything you think would be good to add, ask questions about it. And it's incredibly powerful, and I'll actually get into an example a little later on of so you can see what that's like. For the sake of time, I'm not going to stay on this too much, but this is something that I kind of created for, there's a million different ways that we can interact with ChatGPT or just AI in general nowadays. And also, we're using ChatGPT, but a lot of these, Claude, like any of the Anthropic products, a lot of these things, they have similar, different, like, they have like very similar pieces of software across all of them that are similar. So, starting a new chat in ChatGPT, just one-time assistance, give me that recipe for that lemon poppy seed muffin. If you wanted to use projects in ChatGPT or something where you can actually have like a lot of your data or context already brought into one place, is very helpful. Just like ongoing memory. It's not just a one-time conversation. It's something where you need it to remember all the different acronyms for the different, companies you work with. That's very helpful. A custom GPT is a little bit more personalized than that. Maybe you're even assigning it a role. And then, if you really need to go very far, far into AI development, there is always the API, and, there's coding up different solutions. And this is just to create a extremely personalized, um, you know, application, and usually one that has capabilities that are outside of what ChatGPT can do. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick second here to go to the comments and or to the questions and see if there's anything. I'll definitely answer one. Yes, that was my corgi in the the one slide. So, but let's see here. What questions do we have?
We don't see any questions quite yet.
Okay, sounds good.
Doing good.
So hopefully that means everyone understands what's going on, or at least everyone's on the same page, hopefully. But definitely feel free to ask questions, and we'll come back to this just because there are none for right
I
now.
had posted
Um,
one question. You said you had a 1 hour version of the writing prompts. Can you provide that to us? Do you have the PowerPoint or the information?
Ooh, that's a great question. So that was actually for a hackathon that we ran 2 years ago. So, but it did follow, I'll actually tell you very closely to OpenAI has a prompting like a prompting helping website, and a lot of that was taken from that. So I don't know, it might actually be on YouTube, but for sure we can provide a link to the OpenAI page that most of that was sourced from.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I see a
I
question.
have
So
a quick So I have a quick question on prompting. Lately I've been using more kind of voice to text with ChatGPT, and I've kind of seen myself like ramble in my prompts. Do you think that that's going to negatively impact the results, or does the model do anything with kind of voice to text specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on the different, if it depends on which one you're using, but a lot, I would say yes, it does. And when you're talking to ChatGPT, how you're speaking to it is also providing context to, that conversation. So what you'll actually see with very long conversations with ChatGPT, it'll actually start talking more like you because it's including that context. Like there is some sort of a barrier where it does understand, like there is some disconnect between I'm ChatGPT and you are that person. But yes, that the rambling, that kind of the waffling, I for sure do it, and I definitely have noticed it in the past. Come into like it'll respond back to me almost like how I would talk in a way. So to answer your question, yes, and it's hard to do that because you're obviously on the spot with a voice chat, but I would definitely think that it does have some effect on it. All right, I'm actually going to go ahead just so we can stay on time. But yeah, we'll get to more questions. There'll be a whole Q&A at the end, especially if we get more time. All right, so this is the my favorite part of this, which is why these AI tools go awry. So why we have these problems. So we'll first start, and all of these are things that I have run into my entire course of dealing with AI. So and a lot of these still apply to this day. So this one is over-engineered or false solutions. So I wanted ChatGPT to analyze a video and take notes on it for me, right? Seems like a pretty simple request. Its first step, how it decided was like, okay, I'm going to use my coding platform, which is called Code Interpreter, and it created a code that was able to get the transcript of the video. This is totally reasonable. This is something that it does all the time. There's no problem. That is a totally doable task. The next step was it knows that it was a video, so it's missing out on picture information that's going by. Maybe there's a slide that shows up during this video. What is this? Um, you know, what is going on for the actual like vision part of it? So it wanted to get those visual elements by creating code that saved every frame, and then it wanted every frame of that video, and then it wanted to pass that through a vision model for an explanation. That is unreasonable. That is completely unreasonable, and that is because it was a 30-minute video and it was filmed at 24 frames per second, and that would amount to 43,000 photos to process. So just because ChatGPT can code doesn't mean every solution it produces is viable. And unless you have coding knowledge, it can be difficult to decipher why it failed. Because sometimes it'll just come up and it'll say failed. It doesn't really tell you why, and until you actually click on it, and if you have the coding knowledge, it wasn't until that I actually clicked on it and scrolled down and saw, I was like, okay, so what did it try and do? I was like, oh, it tried to process 43,000 photos. Of course it failed. So a lot of these situations come up, especially when it comes to coding, where it's trying these, different situations of like, oh, okay, well, because it does make sense in somewhat, but going through it, it doesn't really, it can't process that. It can't do that. All right, the next one is data poisoning. And so I had a prompt. I was creating we have our accelerator program, and I wanted to have a accelerator ChatGPT bot for students or staff to talk to that would have a lot of knowledge on, how that program works. And just a very simple question. It's like almost like asking who runs the company, but who runs the AI and Analytics Accelerator? And, which one do you think that it would have chosen? And these are our various names that we've had, that our center has had over the many years. And it actually chose, yeah, so how would this one specifically respond? And it said none of these. It said AI at Wharton, which is not one of our previous names. And it's actually a separate subset. And this is very wrong. And data poisoning is just where malicious or misleading data is either intentionally or accidentally inserted into the training data set of a model, and it degrades its performance and it introduces biases. I could not stop it from making this. It's supposed to be, AI and Analytics Initiative. That was supposed to be the answer. Could not get it to work. It would work sometimes, but 50% of the time it would be incorrect. If I can't get my AI model to say even who helps run the program that it's specifically, and then no matter what prompt engineering I did, no matter what context I provided it, this just stuck and I had to cancel it. I just stopped working on it, and I was just like, okay, maybe just in a couple months that whatever that is that's in its training will get removed, and it completely put a whole stop to that project. So just very interesting. This is data poisoning is very, very can be very, very detrimental to AI in general. So the context window and why AI gets worse after a while. This is the one that I hear come up the most is when people have very long conversations with ChatGPT and like, like it was great. Like I was so close to getting this thing drafted or this document drafted, and it's terrible. It's garbage. And the reason why this happens is that there's something called the context window, and I want you to visualize this as like a bucket. Right. So this bucket can only be filled with so many things because we're going to hit a maximum. There's a technical maximum. Um, that's the number of actually tokens, like we brought up before. These tokens, these into like little parts of the words, or words in general. There's only so much of that we can put into this bucket. And just to show you how quickly this bucket can fill up, we have the OpenAI prompt. So this is what actually OpenAI or Claude or whoever, like Anthropic, will put before to just, tell it like, hey, don't help them do malicious things, things like that. You're a helpful assistant. So that's in there. You have your custom instructions, so things that you've personally told it how to respond to you. And then next you have your like RAG. It's just like that outside you've added like 10 documents kind of a thing. And then you have your, initial prompt and conversation. So these will have varying levels, that's like this will be, varying. Like the OpenAI prompt is like pretty small. Custom instructions can be small. So, but what happens or how they fix this of like why, like how, like, okay, we're about to hit our technical maximum. One of the fixes is they pop a hole in the bottom of the bucket and they let all those things out. We had a hackathon last year where students were trying to get past or break this chatbot that I created. And this is one of the most common things that they were able to do. They were able to bypass safeguards because they filled up that context window with a bunch of garbage. And at the very end, they asked it, hey, can we get the inside information? And then it worked just like that. So chats are going to get worse because a lot of the, hey, you're forgetting this. It's because that outside information, that outside context, those documents got pushed out. Another one of the fixes that they've been doing, it's definitely the easiest fix, is just increasing this context window. Enterprise solutions and the more paid solutions you have, actually, that's one of the things that they say that they include is an increase in the context window. So that's why you'll see with enterprise solutions you'll run into this less. But if you're on Plus or definitely the freeze subscription, you're going to run into this problem where you just can't continue a conversation with ChatGPT anymore. All right, confident and incapable. So ChatGPT and AI tools are a product, right? So these companies want you to have a very positive experience with them, right? So they're forced positive. And this actually works against it because it makes it sound more confident and more capable than they already are. They are yes men. They're have sycophantic behaviors that we've seen where, yes, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I'll try and help with that, and maybe that's not the best for some of our ideas. It's definitely needed to tell me to shut up a couple times. But so, and this is an exaggerated example, but like, I'm asking here, hey, can you help me build a rocket in my small Philly apartment? And it says, of course, I'll help you make that, includes the M dash and everything. It's like, absolutely, let's figure it out. Like I said, this is exaggerated, obviously not something that, is like too much of a real example, but real example it was totally willing to process 43,000 photos, like no problem. It's like, oh yeah, sure. Great. Though, yeah, that's how we do it. Absolutely. Let's try that. So, yeah, so that's that whole being able to be force positive. All right, hallucinations and missing context. So everyone hears about hallucinations, like, oh my God, we can't have the AI model hallucinate. We're going to push this, we're going to push this chatbot out there. And, if 10% of the time it's incorrect on, it's supposed to be understanding international tax law, that's not going to be great. So we want to try and minimize hallucinations as much as possible. And an AI hallucination is just when the model generates information that sounds right, but is actually completely incorrect, or it's just not grounded or in its training or even the given context. To give you an example, I've seen a lot of people create these AI resume evaluators. Well, they'll put in 10 people's resumes and then put the job description in and be like, hey, ChatGPT, who's the best candidate for this right here? Give me the top three. And this is something that, like I said, I've seen this. So we have someone like John Smith's resume, right? So John put his resume in custom font. We see this because people want to be able to squeeze as much information on the page or make theirs stand out. So like there's a lot of different ways that, people will change their resumes just to make sure that they, like I said, stand out. So since this was in a very particular format, ChatGPT was not able to, like what actually runs the back end, was not able to properly parse out that information. So the only thing that it had to go by was his first name, and it created a completely false person, a random John Smith, and then it determined that they were ineligible and it did not include them in the top three. So because it was unable to read that and just it would hallucinate, like this, you see this a lot of time with it'll send you links to things and be like, oh yeah, absolutely, here's the website, and then it'll give you like a website link to click, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's because it's completely hallucinated. So that's kind of what that looks like. Um, this, and then also with like it missing context, if you're not providing things, it goes to look for things, can't find it, we'll be like, well, I still need to be helpful, so I'll just give them a fake link. So yeah, so we see this pretty commonly. All right, I'm going to take a break here just to talk about questions on about these bots. Have we seen some of these out there? Anything like that?
Jaden, we do have a clarification question.
Mhm.
When you were talking about data poisoning, someone asked, what is RAG?
What was it?
What is RAG? What is
Oh, RAG. Yeah,
RAG?
RAG is just it's the acronym for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's just a fancy word for saying the supplemental information that you're giving it. So things like documents that are on like sitting on the outside, like we have lots of students who want to be like, oh, so I can just put in the syllabus and couple PowerPoints for my professor, and then I can have a better understanding of the class. It's just that outside information that just is sitting there. It's called RAG.
Gotcha. Okay, and we do have one other one, and that was one of the pitfalls you had mentioned. Is it just overloading the individual prompt? Or if I have a project or conversation going too long, will that also degrade over time?
Yeah, so the best way to stop this is just by starting a new chat. And this is, yes, an overloading of that one chat. It's not like you're breaking all of ChatGPT. It's just this one individual conversation that you're having. It's not like the entirety of it. What I do a lot is honestly, sometimes I get like 5 prompts in, and then I go, okay, I'm starting to see it, taper off a little bit. What I'll do is you know, create a concise list or give me a summary of everything that we just talked about because I'm going to start a new conversation, essentially. And then I take that and then I start a new conversation with that. And that is super helpful. That's honestly one of the things that I like a prompt, like a technique that I use the most, for sure.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
And then, yeah, a way to identify a model going awry is just incorrect information. So a lot of, how also I believe how AI should be used is should just be used with a person. And if you're, you have the domain knowledge, and if you're getting a feeling that, hey, that's not necessarily correct, or, well, it should have mentioned I had this in the document, it's just being able to understand or have like a very good, like knowing and understanding what you're actually putting into it and seeing if it's giving you that same thing back. Because when it does start to waver, it is, that's when you'll notice. And sometimes it's gotten a lot better. It's definitely that like, so much of it, especially when you're paying money for it and things like that, it definitely gets better. But you'll definitely notice it. So the data sources, that's a great question. So I would love to know that same thing. What these models are built off of, the training data, all those things, I would love to know. And that is a question that I have as well. You are obviously or have some sort of ability to put into, what you can like that context. You have, the ability to put things that are that, and it will take that, it will source that or should source that more than what it's in its training. But yeah, that is a ongoing question, and I wish they were more transparent about that. I would like to know if it's just Twitter or Reddit comments or actual, like maybe some better literature that they've paid for, things like that. All right, I'm gonna move on. Oops, sorry. So, using AI at work. So a lot of what this builds into, um, I wish I could, let's see, how many people are on right now? I saw 200 something, almost 200. So I wish I could sit here and be able to figure out what 200 people are thinking and putting into prompts. I've actually done some research on this, and for most part, it's email. But sitting here and like figuring out, the best way to send an email prompt, like it's definitely would be helpful, but being able to create something that's a little bit more than that, would be much better, a much better use case. So I'd like to talk a little bit about these custom GPTs. So just being able to just kind of push into some of the things that they offer. So not just the blank chat, but being able to put in and fine tune some of these settings. So I actually run two of them. The bottom one is the big box customer service bot. That's something that we ran for the hackathon. It's pretty much just a fake customer service bot that I created for students to be able to figure out and like penetrate. And I also do like my own testing with just to make sure that it's able to give like accurate information, you know. And then the first one is our content creator bot. So this is something that I've fed it, and it's used by like our marketing team just as like a test or, just being able to assist them and make things more efficient. And it has great knowledge of our group because that's what I've given it. I've given it, all of the acronyms, I've given it names and the people who, I work with. So every single time I go to prompt it, I don't have to tell it what WAIAI is every single time. And like a lot of these prompting things, these techniques that I talked about before, we don't necessarily need to type them every single time because, like we said, um, we're trying to be efficient, but if we're taking a second to like, every single time upload a file, upload this, or hey, this is this person I'm talking to. It is so much better just to create one of these tools so that you can just move forward with that. And also with this, I've also created, this is just like my own personal experience with this. I've created AI tools that also sit inside some of our educational models or modules for learning. And they're extremely helpful when they're just a little bit more fine-tuned. So yeah, so this is what one of those custom GPTs look like. And this is the one that I've created for us or for our marketing group. And so here I'm just asking it, can you help me construct a LinkedIn post about our new accelerator partner, right? I mean, I have some starter prompts for it. And when I run this, it says, absolutely, I'd be, glad to help. And before it even creates the post, since it's just such a broad thing, this is one of the prompt engineering techniques that I was talking about before. It asks me all these questions. So I know, so like, okay, so now I can sit here and like, I can figure this out. You can shortcut this by, so now like, I know if I'm going to go do this, like I already, like after using it for like, the 20th time, I'm able to put in a lot of this context, so it won't necessarily ask me questions nowadays. But even then, in this custom instructions, before it's even it even reaches me, it knows, ask me some questions. Who's the target audience? Who am I trying to reach? Is there anything that we're trying to include about this? And you also notice, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but WAIAI. I had made no mention of that. It knows a lot more. So I said accelerator partner, but here it knows it's the AI and analytics accelerator. It has a much better understanding of, the situation just because I took the extra time just to create this little tool. And it is very easy to do it. And I'll kind of go over that a little bit right now. So what is that standard process? What do you actually need for something like this? And so you want to be able to create an identity for this. So for this, it was the marketing content creator and just, like a good description and also some starter prompts. Even sometimes with a lot of these things, you can even ask it, hey, what can you do? What can you help me with? And then, so sorry that this came up later. I should have had it before, but that RAG, retrieval augmented generation, this is that outside knowledge base, that context, those documents you're providing it. So in the content creator bot that I created, it has list of, names, it has listed acronyms, it has a style guide, it has a content guide, like with examples on previous, posts that were done by, people beforehand so that it knows what to follow. And then also it has custom instructions. It knows how to respond. This is where I told it like, hey, if I'm not giving you a lot, then ask me questions on what I should actually respond with. And also with this one, with us, it has some safeguards in it as well, making sure that nothing that we're putting out there is going to be something that we don't want to be out there. And then lastly, capabilities. So this is something, AI is great. Large language models are able to do a lot of, textual analysis, things like that. But they're not able to do things like math, for instance. If you ask a large language model to do any kind of, math, it actually doesn't work. What it does is it uses language as a tool to pass off to an outside calculator or code, right? So and that's exactly what it's doing. It's saying like, okay, well, I'm not able to do this, but I know how to talk to a calculator, and then it will give it that information. So when it goes to answer it, that's what you're actually getting the answer from, not necessarily the large language model. So these capabilities, being able to turn on like image generation or its ability to code, is also things that sit behind there. All right, so gonna go back to the chat and ask some question or answer some questions on some of these AI best practices.
Okay, so we do have one quick clarification question, and this
Mhm.
is, can you explain large language models in simple terms?
Yeah.
Maybe this is
Yep.
a new term for people.
I have thought about making this its own entire hour-long content piece of how we're calling everything AI nowadays. Like I saw how there's an entire drone show. It was like AI drone show. I'm like, okay, like how is that like a like what part of that is AI? Because we've used this word so much that it's kind of lost its meaning. So, and this is why it ties in with large language model. So, large language model is the actual like that was this first AI piece, and that is just it takes in text and it responds in text. That is a large language model. It has this ability to take context from our words and respond to us with that with understanding that concept or that context and then giving us back that response or that answer. And so for instance, that's our large language model, but then it's able to add on additional things like that calculator that, be like, oh, I have this new AI image. Like, so that is the image generation that has just been tacked onto our large language model. Large language model is just using language as a tool to, communicate in different, like, so the first thing is that textual responses and then using it as, a tool to talk to these other outside capabilities. A lot of these initial like, well, AI can't do this or, oh, AI can't do this. How they're supplementing that is by adding and tacking on these new capabilities. So yeah, so large language model was the first AI moment. So that to me, when I hear AI, I think large language model. And the rest of these things are just, machine learning also gets like called AI a bunch, things like that. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question a little bit better.
Okay, thanks. And then we have another question here. And this one is, in sharing contextual information via a RAG, is there a risk my shared information becomes exposed? For example, like a confidential concept or communication.
I love this question. We had an entire hackathon based on this question. Yes, absolutely. Context that is put into this, that information is sitting somewhere. So I have this public, I've made public facing bot, like a ChatGPT bot that had, I put in there like fake, customer information. I had like a secret project, things like that. The hackathon was students figuring out how to get in and get that information, and they were extremely successful in doing that. There's lots of different ways you can do it. There's lots of safeguards. There's ways to get around not having that happen. It's gotten a lot better in recent days. But when creating a front-facing customer product, I would be very careful with the data that you are handing it in its context, for sure. And that's right now. I'm sure maybe that changes in the future, but as of now, I've seen that even the OpenAI prompt that it's told not to do, you can get that. I've been able to get that for every model since. So yes, very, very interesting to think about. Yeah, agentic AI so I'm seeing a question really quick about just speaking about agentic AI in general and the new Anthropic products. Yeah, so this was definitely a little bit out of scope for just like an early 101 talk, but agentic AI is just letting all these kind of systems, like everything that we just talked about, run on its own. Just run on, just like, hey, I'm gonna give you something, come back to me later about, and answer that, and it's really interesting. It's definitely very, very powerful, but I'm still very skeptic on one thing has to go wrong in that entire process, and then you're going to get incorrect information. So there's lots of checks and balances that have to be done, and yes, absolutely, there's pipelines that get created where things won't go as wrong as often as they maybe would, but yeah, it's definitely a lot to think about. Essentially, it is just everything that we just talked about, but leaving it to do its own thing. And yeah, the anthropic models, all this stuff, a lot of them, it has been a constant race for who has the best thing. Literally, I think it was like this morning or even yesterday, Anthropic released like like their new product on for like both like their coding environment, and OpenAI was just like, oh well, we have Codex, and then they dropped Codex as well. So it's just a constant battle back and forth. It's, we'll see who the winner is, but it's, yeah, it's very interesting. My honest opinion on that is kind of maybe just stick to one of them if it's already difficult to, really kind of tack down what exactly is the great thing. Like I couldn't give you an answer for which one I think is the best. I think I have to be a little biased. I think we work with OpenAI the most. But I would rather you focus on one particular company, and then if there's really something that like makes you want to go to the next one, go to the next one. Yeah, so best practices for keeping information you upload confidential. Um, this gets into being a little bit more technical, but just kind of creating a barrier. So not necessarily storing it what's called RAG, or those outside documents, but have it pass to something else. Like we talked about, different capabilities that you can include it. So it has to query like a database, and then that database has checks and balances before it actually will pass that information back to the bot. So it's just essentially adding extra steps. Um, Not anything that would be in a ChatGPT product like currently, like just like the base ChatGPT. I also just saw, just going through, there's a lot to talk about, what Copilot is and like how this is also like, the difference between ChatGPT and Copilot. It's all kind of the same. Actually, I believe Copilot is using the OpenAI API. So it is essentially just ChatGPT kind of in the back end. So they are very close. Um, just know when you're working with this is, oh yeah, and I see a couple things like free versions and things like that. There is no such thing as free. I'm sure we all know you're paying for it in some way. So when you're using a free product, they're most likely using your information and training on that data in some way. And yeah, I think that's it for the questions. I'm gonna leave on a little. It wouldn't be the academic world without giving everyone a little homework. So I want everyone to go out there and create, your own custom GPT. Figure this kind of thing out. It is definitely the most helpful way instead of just keep starting these new chats and like, have it know like a little bit more about, what's going on, or like so you don't have to include all this context every single time. You can just like, start. So yeah, I'm gonna maybe answer. Oh, I saw a couple more questions. Is it? Yeah. So if you're totally novice, complete novice to all of this, there's the link that I included for like an OpenAI page. If it just like with actual prompting skills, there's that. So you can have like a little bit better idea of how to prompt. But it really is just kind of getting in there and just asking questions. Get on a free account. Have it make you. The things that I use it like most for is just like email creation. It's really great at recipes. If you actually want to, try like a very, easy, beginner, like a very entry level thing, there's nothing better than it like creating some recipes for you. And then you could also see, hey, was it a good recipe? You have like oh, well, this is terrible. Of course, like, oh, well, it's just bad at that. But yeah. And let's,
We do have a question
Mhm.
that came in here that someone said, to your point in the beginning, where you said AI should only be used if it increases efficiency. And so they're asking if it takes some time to get used to something, how does that factor into the efficiency?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I mean, it's just with any tool. Like, imagine how long it took for you to finally understand how to use like formulas in Excel, and then that is just getting over that barrier of understanding how to like learn formulas in Excel. And like now it's just like, oh man, I don't have to do like any kind, like I don't have to sit here with a calculator or do any kind of math. Like it's just taking the time and taking some time to figure it out, see if it's worth it. It does change a lot. So it is something that I would say if you don't have necessarily like the first pass that you gave it, it was hard, and definitely come back to it because they really are trying to make it as friendly as possible because they need users. I don't want to get into too much of the AI landscape and all of that stuff, but they're desperate to try and figure out how to get this into everyone's, workflow in some way. So they are trying to make it at least easier.
Okay, great. Um, we do have a couple other questions coming in here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll let you if we're good on time. I'm happy to answer
Right.
more, but if we need to move on, no problem.
Um, We do have one. Once you start using one of the AI companies, is there a way to transfer all of what you shared from one to another?
Yeah, this is something. So this is something I've definitely seen quite often of people, and I do not. I'm someone where I will delete all my chats. There's a lot of things that I work on where I'm like, I will be like, okay, I got it, it's finished, and I'll delete a chat and move on. But I know that not everyone is like that, and they like to hold on to these things. As far as moving chats and getting able to move, yeah, like I said, like moving one thing to another. Ask ChatGPT to do that for you. Hey, I need to move, like I was talking about before, like, hey, we're gonna move to a new chat. Like, create a new document, put a summarization of this entire chat, make it concise into this document, and then, maybe don't tell it you're going to move to Claude or whatever. But, get it to do it for you. I mean, that's, why we're using this technology in the first place is being able to have it do these things for us. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation is to have it think, take what we've talked about, make it concise, put it in a document for me or something I can copy and paste, and then you can move that over to the new solution. Um, Also just something about, what is the best, it's hard. I know that I think it's called Poe. There's a website out there that allows you to talk to multiple bots off of like one subscription. If you wanted to do something like that, there are other things. I would look into it, but yeah, if you're so curious as to the difference between all the different models and things like that, like, oh, which one's the best? There are, I think, solutions out there for being able to talk and just off of one subscription to multiple different models. And it's all for your use case. Like I really wish I could know and understand whatever, all 200 people are trying to figure out what, AI is used for. Like I said, mostly emailing and figuring out it's one of those situations where we go into a meeting, we take AI notes, and then the AI notes, we read them, and then we put those AI notes into an email. That email gets sent, and then they use their AI bot to turn that into bullet points. Then they read that. Um, the whole AI cycle. But yeah, it's really up to your use case. Just keep testing it. Just, the great news is that these subscriptions are most like you have like a usage limit, sure, but hit that usage limit. Get your money's worth. Like really, really, push and stress these systems like, while you can. Because the API model, for instance, is pay as you use, and I think that might be the future. I don't know, but we'll see.
Okay, great. We do have someone asking, is it worth storing or documenting your prompts in a separate place outside of the LLM or
That's a great
outside of,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, so that separate library so for instance, if I was to create a service or a chatbot that needed to have some sort of outside information and I knew it had to be somewhat safe, I would put it through there's ways that you can create like outside things that have additional checks and balances before things get passed through. Um, also for a prompt library, the school, so through the generative AI lab here at Wharton, they have a prompt library where they actually show and have a lot of different prompts that are, and like, you can see why they work and how they work. And I definitely recommend, and maybe we can get a link for that for everyone. How do you revisit a chat and or eventually delete it? That's a great question. Definitely go into your data control. So for ChatGPT, it's in data controls, and you have like a little delete all chats um, button, and that's super useful. Mhm. Custom GPT, the difference between a custom GPT and a project is a custom GPT, you have an additional layer of instructions. You're also able to have a better, you're also better able to turn on and off those capabilities. And then most importantly, you can share it with other people who have that link and a ChatGPT account. Projects, I think you can also share, but like the sharing method is a little bit better on the custom GPTs. Oh, excellent. I see the prompt library in the chat now. Mhm.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, I just want to go ahead and thank you so much, Jaden. This has been very, very informative. Before we go, we would like to launch a quick poll to get some feedback from all of you, especially what would you like to know more about? How was this session? And is there anything specific you'd like to know a little bit more about?
And while you're answering this poll, I'll just do my final sign off. If anyone would like to get in touch, please let me know. You can email me. We also have our group. We do a lot of, there's many different ways that you can get involved, either at a personal level or even a company level with the many things that we do. And yeah, thank you so much for spending time, and hopefully talk to you soon.
Yes, I would also like to give a special shout out to Lauren for introducing you, and Jillian from WAIAI for their support and sharing so many resources today. We will add some links in the chat for you, and other ways that you can get involved. This session has been recorded. We are going to share all of the links and everything with you afterwards. So we just want to thank you for spending some time with us today and doing some lunchtime learning.